Did you know that some foods we've enjoyed our entire lives, foods that feel like comfort and tradition, might actually be working against us as we get a little older? It's a tough pill to swallow, isn't it? Thinking that something you look forward to could be putting extra strain on your body, making you feel less energetic, perhaps contributing to those aches or that feeling of being a bit sluggish. The painful reality is that our bodies change, especially after 65, and what they needed and could handle easily in our 20s, 40s, or even 50s might not be the best fuel anymore. It's not about blame or regret, but about understanding that this beautiful machine we live in has different requirements now. There's a quiet secret many people discover later in life. Some seemingly innocent choices we make at the dinner table can have a much bigger impact than we ever imagined, slowly chipping away at our vitality and increasing risks we'd rather avoid. Specifically, when it comes to meat, there are certain types or ways of preparing it that become less forgiving as the years go by. They can put a burden on your heart, make digestion trickier, and even increase the likelihood of developing serious health issues down the road. It's not about giving up everything you love, but about making smarter swaps that support your well-being, not undermine it. In this video, we're going to look at 4 specific types of meat, or ways meat is prepared, that you might want to stop eating, or at least drastically reduce, after the age of 65. We'll dive into why they can be problematic for an aging body and, more importantly, what delicious and healthy alternatives you can enjoy instead. This isn't about fear-mongering. It's about empowering you with information so you can make the best choices for feeling vibrant, strong, and full of life. Watch all the way to the end, because one of the meats we discuss, or rather, how it's often prepared, might truly surprise you, and understanding why is absolutely critical for your long-term health. Let's start with the first category of meat that many people find beneficial to significantly cut back on or even eliminate after 65, and that's processed meats. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Things like bacon, sausages, deli meats, hot dogs. They've been a part of our meals for so long, haven't they? Breakfasts, sandwiches, quick dinners. They're convenient, they taste good, and they're everywhere. But here's the thing. Processed meats are packed with stuff that our bodies, particularly as they age, find increasingly difficult to handle and which can actively work against our health goals. Think about the sodium content alone. Our need for sodium doesn't change drastically, but our body's ability to manage high amounts does. As we get older, our kidneys might not be quite as efficient at filtering out excess sodium, which can lead to higher blood pressure. High blood pressure is a major risk factor for heart disease, stroke, and kidney problems, all of which become more prevalent concerns after 65. Just a few slices of deli ham or a couple of sausages can contribute a significant chunk of your daily recommended sodium intake, making it harder to keep your blood pressure in a healthy range. It's like constantly asking your heart and blood vessels to work harder than they need to, day in and day out. Beyond sodium, processed meats contain preservatives like nitrates and nitrites. While these compounds help keep the meat looking pink and extend its shelf life, they can be converted into something called nitrosamines in our bodies, especially when cooked at high temperatures. Nitrosamines are known carcinogens. Numerous studies, including large analyses by organizations like the World Health Organization, have linked the regular consumption of processed meats to an increased risk of certain cancers, particularly colorectal cancer, as our cellular repair mechanisms might not be as robust as they once were. Minimizing exposure to potential carcinogens becomes even more important. Regularly eating these meats adds a layer of risk that many find isn't worth the temporary convenience or taste. And let's not forget the saturated and unhealthy fats. Processed meats are often made from fattier cuts and undergo processing that can increase their overall fat content. While some fat is necessary, the type and amount found in these meats can contribute to elevated cholesterol levels, specifically the bad LDL cholesterol. Over time, High LDL cholesterol can lead to plaque buildup in your arteries, a condition called atherosclerosis. This narrows the arteries, restricting blood flow to your heart and brain, increasing the risk of heart attacks and strokes. An aging cardiovascular system is already facing its own challenges, and loading it up with excess unhealthy fats just makes its job that much harder. It's not just about major diseases, either. The inflammatory compounds and high fat in processed meats can also contribute to lower-grade inflammation throughout the body. Chronic low-grade inflammation is linked to a host of age-related issues, including joint pain, cognitive decline, and a weakened immune system. You might feel it as general stiffness, lack of energy, or just not feeling right. These meats don't provide the nourishing building blocks your body needs to stay strong and repair itself. Instead, they introduce elements that create extra work and potential damage. So, what can you do? The good news is there are so many delicious alternatives. If you love sandwiches, swap the deli meat for leftover cooked chicken or turkey breast, maybe some canned tuna or salmon, or even plant-based options like hummus and roasted vegetables, instead of bacon or sausages for breakfast. Try eggs, Greek yogurt, or oatmeal with fruit and nuts. If it's the smoky flavor you crave, explore using smoked paprika or liquid smoke sparingly in your cooking with leaner proteins. The key is to replace processed meats with whole, less processed protein sources that provide nutrients without the added burden of high sodium, nitrites, and unhealthy fats. Making this switch isn't about sacrifice, it's about choosing foods that actively support your energy levels, your heart health, and your overall resilience. It's about fueling your body with goodness so you can feel your best and enjoy every single day to the fullest. It might feel like a big change at first, but once you discover the wealth of tasty alternatives, you won't miss the processed stuff, and your body will absolutely thank you. Now that we've discussed processed meats and why reducing them is so beneficial, let's move on to another category that many of us grew up with and still enjoy: red meat. We're talking about beef, pork, lamb, and the like. For decades, red meat was considered a staple, a source of protein and iron. And yes, it does contain those things. However, the picture becomes a bit more complex as we navigate our later years, particularly when it comes to how much red meat we eat and how often. One of the primary concerns with red meat, especially the fattier cuts, is its saturated fat and cholesterol content. While dietary cholesterol's direct impact on blood cholesterol isn't as straightforward as once thought for everyone, saturated fat is a different story. It can definitely raise your bad LDL cholesterol levels, which, as we discussed earlier, is a risk factor for heart disease. After 65, our cardiovascular system has been working for a long time, and plaque buildup in arteries becomes a more significant concern. Regular, high consumption of saturated fat from red meat adds to this risk, making arteries stiffer and narrowing them over time, increasing the workload on your heart and potentially reducing blood flow to vital organs. It's about managing cumulative exposure over a lifetime. Beyond saturated fat, there's the issue of compounds found naturally in red meat, such as heme-iron and L-carnitine. While heme-iron is more easily absorbed than plant-based iron, excessive amounts over time have been linked in some studies to increased risk of certain chronic diseases. L-carnitine, when metabolized by gut bacteria, can produce a compound called TMAO-trimethylamine N-oxide, which has been associated with an increased risk of heart disease. The research is ongoing, but the general consensus from major health organizations points towards moderating red meat intake for overall health benefits. Another point to consider is digestion. As we age, our digestive system can slow down a bit. Producing enough stomach acid and digestive enzymes might not be as efficient as it once was. Red meat, especially fattier cuts, can be harder for the body to break down compared to leaner proteins or plant-based options. This can lead to digestive discomfort, bloating, and constipation for some people, while not a severe health risk in itself. Chronic digestive issues certainly impact quality of life and how energetic you feel. Furthermore, studies have linked high consumption of red meat, particularly processed red meat, which we already covered. But the link holds for unprocessed red meat too, though less strongly, to an increased risk of certain cancers, notably colorectal cancer. The exact mechanisms are still being researched, but factors like the heme iron, the formation of harmful compounds during cooking, which we'll touch on next, and other components are thought to play a role. For individuals over 65 who are already in an age group where cancer risk generally increases, reducing exposure to known or suspected risk factors is a sensible strategy for staying healthier longer. So, is all red meat off the table? Not necessarily for everyone, but the recommendation for most people over 65 is to significantly reduce the frequency and portion sizes. Think of red meat as an occasional meal, perhaps once or twice a week at most, rather than a daily occurrence. When you do eat it, choose leaner cuts like sirloin, flank steak, or pork tenderloin, and trim off any visible fat. Keep portion sizes reasonable. About the size of a deck of cards is a good visual guide. Explore other protein sources like chicken, turkey, fish, especially fatty fish like salmon, which are great for heart health, beans, lentils, tofu, and nuts. These offer protein and other beneficial nutrients without the same burden of saturated fat and other potentially harmful compounds associated with higher red meat consumption. Now, let's talk about a way of preparing meat that becomes more concerning as we get older. Frying. Whether it's chicken, fish, or even leaner cuts of meat, adds a significant amount of unhealthy fat to your meal. When foods are deep fried, they soak up the cooking oil, often contributing large amounts of saturated and potentially trans fats, especially if the oil isn't fresh or is heated repeatedly. Consuming these types of fats regularly contributes to the risks of heart disease and stroke we've already discussed, adding extra calories without much nutritional value, which can also lead to unhealthy weight gain, putting extra strain on joints and organs. But it's not just about adding fat. Frying, especially at high temperatures, can create harmful compounds in the meat. One major concern is the formation of advanced glycation end products, or AGEs. These compounds are formed when proteins or fats are cooked at high temperatures, like frying, grilling, or broiling until well done. AGEs can accumulate in the body over time and are associated with increased inflammation and oxidative stress, which are underlying factors in many age-related diseases, including heart disease, diabetes, kidney disease, and even Alzheimer's. Our bodies become less efficient at clearing these AGEs as we age, so reducing their intake becomes more important. Fried foods are particularly high in these compounds. And here's the fourth type, or rather, cooking method, that you might find surprising. As promised, it's related to high-temperature cooking. But specifically, it's about charred or burnt meat. You know, those crispy edges on your grilled steak, the blackened bits on a barbecue sausage, or the slightly burnt layer on fried chicken. While some people find these parts tasty, they contain the highest concentration of some seriously unwelcome compounds. When muscle meat, like beef, pork, poultry, or fish, is cooked at high temperatures, particularly when grilled, pan-fried, or broiled, two types of harmful chemicals can form heterocyclic amines, HCAs, and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, PAHs. HCAs form from the reaction of amino acids, sugars, and creatine at high temperatures. PAHs form when fat and juices from the meat drip onto a hot surface or flame, causing smoke, which then rises and coats the meat. Both HCAs and PAHs have been shown to be mutagenic, meaning they can cause changes in DNA. And studies have linked high consumption of charred or well-done meat cooked this way to an increased risk of certain cancers, including colorectal, pancreatic, and prostate cancer. For someone over 65 where cancer risk is a greater consideration, minimizing exposure to these known carcinogens is a very prudent step. It's not just about eating less red meat. It's about how you cook any meat. That beloved char might be slowly adding to your cancer risk over years of consumption. This is the point that often surprises people. Because grilling and barbecuing are seen as healthier alternatives to frying. And in some ways, they are. But the burning or charring introduces a different, specific risk. So, what can you do to enjoy meat without the risk of AGEs, HCAs, and PAHs? It's all about smarter cooking methods. Instead of frying, opt for baking, stewing, poaching, or steaming. These methods use lower temperatures and don't require added fats in the same way. If you are grilling or pan frying, use lower heat where possible. Flip the meat frequently to avoid charring. And pre-cook meat in a microwave or oven for a few minutes before finishing it on the grill to reduce the time it needs high heat exposure. Marinating meat can also help reduce HCA formation. And most importantly, if you see charred or burnt pieces, it's best to cut them off and discard them. It might seem like a small thing, but consistently avoiding charred meat over time can make a difference in your long-term health profile. So, to recap briefly, we've talked about processed meats loaded with sodium and preservatives, excessive red meat and its saturated fat burden, and how high-temperature cooking methods like frying and charring introduce harmful compounds like AGEs, HCAs, and PAHs. It might sound like a lot to consider, but please don't feel overwhelmed. This isn't about making drastic, joyless changes overnight. It's about understanding where some potential risks lie and making informed decisions that add up to significant health benefits over time. Remember, making small, sustainable changes can make a truly big difference to your health and happiness, especially in your later years. Think about where you can start. Could you swap out your morning bacon a few days a week for some berries and yogurt? Maybe try a delicious lentil soup instead of your usual deli meat sandwich for lunch. Perhaps experiment with baking chicken instead of frying it. Or being more mindful about trimming off charred bits from grilled food. Every little bit helps and is a step towards feeling better and protecting your long-term health. The goal here isn't perfection, it's progress. It's about reducing the load on your body, giving it the best possible chance to thrive. By being more mindful of the types of meat you eat and how you cook them, you can lower your risk of heart disease, certain cancers, reduce inflammation, improve digestion, and simply feel more energetic and vibrant day to day. This isn't about living a life of strict rules. It's about making conscious choices that support the lifestyle you want to live. One full of activity, time with loved ones, and the energy to pursue your passions. Making dietary changes is a journey, and it's one you take at your own pace. Be kind to yourself. Celebrate the small victories. If you slip up, don't despair. Just get back on track with your next meal. The most important thing is the direction you're heading in, towards a plate full of nourishing foods that help your body function at its best. Think about all the delicious alternatives available: vibrant fruits and vegetables, whole grains, legumes, nuts, seeds, fish, lean poultry, and the countless ways to prepare them that are both healthy and incredibly tasty. Exploring new recipes and ingredients can even be a fun adventure. We'd love to hear from you. What are your thoughts on these meats? Is there one you find particularly challenging to give up? Or maybe you've already made some of these changes and have noticed a difference. Share your experiences and tips in the comments below. Your insights could be incredibly helpful and inspiring to others in our community who are on a similar journey. It's wonderful to support each other. If you found this video helpful, if it gave you something to think about or inspired you to make a positive change, please give it a like. That simple action helps this information reach more people who could benefit from it. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that notification bell. We're dedicated to bringing you practical, easy to understand information and tips to help you live your healthiest, happiest life at any age. We cover all sorts of topics related to well-being as we get older. Remember, Your health is your most valuable asset. Taking proactive steps with your diet is one of the most powerful things you can do to invest in yourself and your future. You have the wisdom and the ability to make choices that empower you. Keep learning, keep exploring, and keep nourishing your body with foods that make you feel alive and strong. Live your best life at every age. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.